You ever have one of those moments where life throws something at you that just doesn't make sense? Something that interrupts your rhythm, rattles your plans, maybe even makes you question everything? We all have. And here's what I want you to really hear today. Those moments, the ones that seem like chaos or disappointment or flat out disaster, might just be the exact moments when God is doing his most precise work in your life. See, our brains are wired for certainty. We crave patterns. We love knowing what's next because it gives us the illusion of control. But growth doesn't come from certainty. It comes from disruption, from being forced to adapt, to look deeper, to stretch ourselves beyond what we thought was possible. And often it's in those unexpected disruptions that something far greater is being orchestrated. What looks like a setback is sometimes the setup for your next level. But here's the challenge. Most people don't see it that way in the moment. Most people resist what they don't understand. They judge the interruption as bad, painful, unfair, and they miss the favor that's hidden in it. Philosophers talk about the concept of telos, purpose, and final cause. And in life, many times our personal telos doesn't align with what we think we want right now. We're focused on comfort, predictability, and validation. But the universe, or God, however you frame it, is focused on transformation, on preparing you for what you're really here to do. And transformation doesn't come wrapped in comfort. It usually arrives dressed as discomfort, loss, betrayal, or uncertainty. That's why I say embrace the disruption. It's divine redirection. Let me give you a more psychological lens for this. When we experience emotional pain or loss, the mind wants to assign blame. That's how we cope. It's the brain trying to make sense of something that doesn't compute. But what if instead of blame, we chose to look for meaning? What if we started to ask, what if this interruption is actually an invitation? Not a punishment, not a detour, but an invitation into something deeper, something better. That shift in perception doesn't just change how we feel, it changes the direction of our lives. Because perception drives behavior and behavior creates outcomes. And if you're perceiving your current pain as permanent, as purposeless, you're going to shrink. But if you perceive it as purposeful, as preparation, you're going to rise. I've seen this over and over again in people from all walks of life. The business leader who got fired from his dream job only to build something 10 times more impactful. The woman who faced heartbreak and loss but discovered a calling that healed not just her but thousands of others. Disruption is often how destiny shows up in disguise. So don't resist it, don't label it as the end. Instead, lean in, ask bigger questions, listen deeper, because the favor you're looking for may not come packaged the way you expected, but it's coming. And it's already here if you're willing to see it. The storm isn't here to break you, it's here to build the version of you that can walk in the favor you've been praying for. One of the biggest lies that people carry, often without even realizing it, is the belief that they have to earn the right to be blessed. That somehow they've got to hit some invisible checklist of perfection before they can walk in favor. It's subtle. It hides behind phrases like, when I finally get my life together, or once I'm more spiritual, more disciplined, more consistent. But let me tell you something with absolute clarity. Favor isn't earned, it's received. Now that may challenge how you've been taught to think, especially in a world that constantly reinforces performance-based value, grades, promotions, followers, approval. We live in a culture where you're rewarded for results. So it makes sense that we transfer that same mindset onto God, onto faith, onto how we believe favor works. But here's where we've got to shift. Divine favor doesn't operate on a merit system. It operates on grace. And grace doesn't ask, have you earned this? It asks, are you willing to receive it? The truth is, most people aren't blocked from walking in favor because they're unworthy. They're blocked because they're unavailable. They've convinced themselves they're disqualified. Maybe because of past failures, maybe because of shame or doubt or some old identity they never released. But I'm telling you, none of that matters to the source of favor. God isn't waiting for perfection He's waiting for permission. And that permission starts with you saying, yes, I'm open. I'm ready to receive what I don't fully understand and what I may not feel I deserve. Psychologically, this is critical, because if your identity is wrapped up in guilt, unworthiness, or performance-based value, then even when opportunities come your way, you'll sabotage them. You'll shrink back. You'll think it was a fluke. You'll tell yourself, I'm not ready, or this can't be for me. That's the mind trying to protect an outdated identity. But favor doesn't care about your resume. It cares about your readiness. And readiness is a posture of heart. It's a mindset. It's choosing to believe that maybe, just maybe, something bigger is trying to bless you right now, even if it doesn't make sense on paper. From a philosophical angle, think about this. Grace is disruptive. It breaks the logic of karma, of cause and effect, of justice. Grace gives without calculation. And favor is grace in action. It places you in the right room, opens the right door, introduces the right person, protects you from what you'll never even know was a threat. That kind of favor is not fair. But it is real and it's available. The only question is, will you keep playing small because you think you're not ready? Or will you finally accept that readiness begins the moment you say, I'm enough for this step. Let's go. You don't need to hustle for what heaven has already handed you. Favor is already chasing you down. You just need to stop running from it. Here's what most people misunderstand about favor. It's not passive. It's not some magical thing that just drops into your lap while you're waiting around hoping for life to change. Favor partners with faith. It responds to movement. It multiplies in motion. When you show up with belief, not just belief in some vague outcome, but belief that you're called, belief that you're equipped, belief that you were meant for more, that's when things start to shift. That's when favor gets activated. There's a principle at play here, both spiritually and psychologically. What you focus on, you move toward. The brain is a goal-seeking mechanism. When you take a step in faith, your subconscious begins reorganizing your reality to align with that step. You begin to notice opportunities you would have ignored. You draw connections you couldn't see before. This isn't just mystical talk, it's how the mind works. But faith doesn't just rewire the brain, it's a spiritual force. It's a signal to the universe, to God, that you're not waiting for certainty, you're willing to step into the unknown. And that's where favor rushes in. Because favor doesn't show up to confirm your comfort, it shows up to accelerate your courage. A lot of people are waiting for a sign to move. They want assurance, they want to feel ready. But it's the act of moving before the sign, before the confirmation that opens the door. That's the paradox. You don't get the fire before you bring the wood. You bring your faith and then the fire comes. Every major shift in your life is going to require that you trust something before you can see it. That's the uncomfortable truth, but it's also the gateway to transformation. Look at the stories we admire, biblical figures, leaders, innovators, artists. What did they have in common? They moved before they had it all figured out. They stepped into spaces they weren't fully prepared for. And that decision, that inner yes, activated the resources, the people, the wisdom they needed along the way. There's a kind of favor that only meets you in the middle of motion. You won't find it standing still. You won't find it trying to play it safe. Philosophers have long argued about the nature of destiny. Is it fixed? Is it chosen? I believe it's coathamer. There's what you were created for, and then there's what you decide to move toward. Faith is your part in the co-creation. It's the daily choice to act as if you're already backed, already chosen, already held, even when your circumstances haven't caught up yet. So the question becomes, where in your life have you been hesitating? Where are you waiting for certainty before you commit? Because you don't need certainty, you need clarity. And clarity doesn't come from thinking, it comes from doing. From taking one bold step and letting that step reveal the next one. Stop waiting for the fire to prove you've got favor. Bring your faith. That's what starts the fire. There's a pattern I've seen over and over again, not just in coaching people, but in watching human nature unfold at scale. The closer you get to stepping fully into your purpose, the louder the resistance becomes. And I don't just mean external resistance. I'm talking about the self-doubt, the fear, the anxiety, the unexpected chaos that seems to hit hardest right when you finally start making real progress. And that's not a coincidence. That's a sign. Here's a radical idea that can change how you interpret your entire life. The areas under the most attack are usually the areas with the most anointing. In other words, the very thing you feel most under pressure in, the place where you feel opposition, tension, or even straight up spiritual warfare is often the thing you're meant to do. It's not happening because you're off track. It's happening because you're on it. The resistance is often the confirmation. Let's break this down from a psychological standpoint. The brain is designed to protect. It's constantly scanning for threats, constantly looking to keep you in the known, even if the known isn't good for you. The moment you decide to step into something greater, something unknown, something purposeful, your brain triggers alarms. It says, whoa, this is dangerous. Not because it actually is, but because it's different. And what's different is interpreted as a threat. So self-sabotage kicks in. Delay, distraction, disconnection. That's how the brain tries to pull you back into what's familiar. But if you interpret that resistance as a stop sign, you'll never move forward. If you see it for what it really is, a signal that you're on sacred ground, you'll keep going. Now, let's layer in the spiritual lens. You weren't just born with talent or potential. You were born with assignment. And when you start stepping into that assignment, you're not just impacting your life, you're impacting others. That's when resistance intensifies. Because purpose is disruptive, it shifts the atmosphere. The enemy doesn't fight what isn't a threat. So if you're under attack, if everything in your life feels like it's shaking, ask yourself this: what part of my calling am I getting close to? The enemy often hits hardest where you're called to lead. That's why the insecurity shows up right before the breakthrough. That's why doors seem to close right when you're about to walk through them. It's not because you're weak or unworthy, it's because you're aligned, and alignment attracts both opposition and favor at the same time. So what do you do when you feel that pressure? You don't back down, you don't shrink. You recognize that pressure for what it is, a marker of your mission. You double down on your belief. You step forward with even more intention, because your assignment is not just about you. It's about everyone you're meant to serve, to impact, to inspire through the very thing you're tempted to walk away from. If the resistance feels personal, it's probably because your purpose is powerful. Keep moving. Favor fights for those who don't quit. There's this cultural obsession with passion. Find your passion. Follow your passion. Do what you love. And while that sounds good on paper, it's actually a dangerous half-truth. Passion can be powerful, yes, but it's also emotional. It's reactive. It's often rooted in the moment. What feels exciting? What gives you energy right now? But here's the problem. Passion fades. It burns hot, then it burns out. Purpose doesn't. Purpose is deeper. It's rooted in your identity, in your values, in your reason for existing. It's not just about what excites you, it's about what calls to you, what endures even when motivation disappears. And here's where a lot of people get stuck. They confuse passion for purpose. They chase energy instead of direction, and they wonder why, after the thrill wears off, they still feel empty. Let's talk about this psychologically for a second. The dopamine system in the brain is built to reward novelty. That's why passion feels so intoxicating. New relationships, new ideas, new opportunities. But the moment it becomes routine, the dopamine hit lessens. It doesn't light you up the same way. That's biology, but purpose activates something far more sustainable, long-term meaning. It taps into a different part of your nervous system, one that's more aligned with commitment, resilience, vision. And when you're living in purpose, you don't need constant emotional highs to keep going. You move with conviction, not just with adrenaline. Now, here's the deeper layer. Philosophically and spiritually, passion is often about the self. What makes me feel alive? But purpose always points beyond the self. It's about impact. It's about legacy. And favor doesn't flow to the loudest emotions. It flows to align to the places in your life where what you do matches why you were created. And that kind of alignment creates spiritual velocity. It opens doors not just because you're good at something, but because you're meant for it. You want to walk in God's favor? Stop chasing what's exciting and start following what's enduring. Look at the moments in your life where you felt not just lit up, but deeply anchored. Look at the things you do that make you feel connected to something bigger than yourself. That's your clue. That's your path. And once you find that, you don't need to hype yourself up every morning. You wake up knowing who you are and why you're here. The truth is, passion will start the fire, but purpose keeps it burning. Purpose gives your pain meaning. Purpose turns obstacles into training grounds. It's the reason you keep showing up even when nobody's clapping, even when no one's watching, because something inside you knows this matters. So if you've been wondering why you feel stuck or why your energy comes in waves, maybe it's time to stop asking what you love and start asking what you're assigned to. Passion can entertain you, but purpose will transform you. Trade hype for alignment. That's where favor lives. There are two kinds of time we live in. The first is chronos, the time you can measure, minutes, hours, deadlines, calendars. It's linear. It's the rhythm of schedules and systems. But there's another kind of time that doesn't follow your watch. It follows your purpose. It's called kairos. And kairos isn't about the quantity of time. It's about the quality of the moment. It's divine timing. It's the kind of moment that feels like a door just cracked open if you're present enough, aware enough, bold enough to walk through it. Right now, some of you are standing in a kairos moment, and you might not even realize it because kairos doesn't always show up looking like opportunity. Sometimes it looks like disruption. Sometimes it looks like risk or loss or that quiet inner voice that just won't stop nudging you. The difference is how you interpret it. Kairos requires discernment. It's the ability to recognize that this is not just another day. This is not just another decision. This moment has weight. And if you miss it, you don't just lose time, you lose trajectory. Here's what's fascinating. From a psychological perspective, Kairos is tied to a state of heightened awareness. You've probably experienced it before, those flashes of clarity where time feels like it slows down and something inside you just knows that this matters more than usual. Those are your signal moments. But most people miss them because they're too distracted, too afraid, or too caught up in routine. They're living in chronos, waiting for something dramatic to shake them awake, not realizing they're walking past divine moments every day. Now let's layer in the spiritual dimension. Throughout Scripture, Kairos was the moment when God interrupted the ordinary to do something extraordinary. It's when heaven intersects earth and says, now. But here's the catch. Kairos doesn't force itself on you. It's an invitation, not an obligation. You have to step into it. You have to choose it. And that takes courage. Because Kairos usually demands more than you're comfortable giving. It might require you to leave behind what's safe, what's predictable, even what's popular. But what it gives you in return is access to a version of yourself and a future that you can't reach by staying where you are. And this is the challenge. Most people pray for favor, for breakthrough, for change. But when the Kairos moment comes, they hesitate, they second guess. They tell themselves, now's not the time, or I'm not ready. But the truth is, you're never going to feel ready. Readiness isn't a feeling, it's a decision. It's about trust. Trusting that if the door opened, you're meant to walk through it. Trusting that the moment you step out, grace will meet you. Provision will meet you. Favor will meet you. This is not just another season. This is a Kairos moment. And you don't need more time. You need more courage. Don't wait for everything to line up perfectly. The door is open now. Step into it. Because when you move in Kairos, favor follows fast.